Welcome back to Breakfast Television. The kids are back in school and those classrooms can be full of triggers for kids with asthma. That's just one reason why the September spike occurs every year. Here to tell us more about this annual phenomenon is Dr. Raj Bhardwaj. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So why don't we start at the beginning? What exactly is this September spike?
So it really is a spike in cases of asthma that we see in the emergency room. Family doctors see it, asthma clinics see it, and it's actually pretty impressive. If you think of all the admissions throughout the year for pediatric asthma into hospital, so people who have to stay overnight, 20 to 25% of them happen in September.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big number.
That is an actual spike then. Yeah, it sure is. So what's going on there? Why does this happen?
Well, it's because there's so many flare-ups of asthma, and flare-ups of asthma, especially in kids, about 85% of the time, they're caused by a virus. And if you imagine you're back to school, so you're back to all those viruses, you weren't sharing through the summer, but now with all the friends, and they're wrestling, and they're playing, and they're doing stuff, and they're sharing all those viruses.
Right.
So that's one.
Okay.
The second thing is that we also get a spike in allergens. So we had a really big spike in the spring, especially this year.
Yes.
And then it kind of settles down. This year was funny with the fire smoke. We actually had a bit of a spike there. But now we're getting another spike in allergens and things like ragweed type things.
Oh,
so that's
okay.
also causing more asthma flare-ups.
Wow. I was also curious about maybe kids that actually have puffers. Are they falling off their regular schedule through the summer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens. I mean, I think we all do it. We sort of fall off our regular schedule of all the things we're supposed to be doing, getting up early and eating right and doing all that.
Yeah.
They also fall off their asthma puffer schedule. And then when they get back and their body is challenged by a virus or by allergens or whatever, then they don't have as much capacity to kind of deal with that. So then they get a flare up a little bit more easily or a little bit worse of a flare up.
Okay, interesting. Here's a question for you. Can a child have their first sort of presentation of asthma symptoms during the September spike?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's actually quite common.
Really?
Yeah, and it's interesting because the most common symptom for asthma, especially in kids, is not the wheezing that you sort of think about with asthma. It's actually usually a cough, and often a nighttime cough.
A nighttime cough?
Yeah,
okay.
So people will come in with their kids and say, my kid has a cough and it's worse at night and it's keeping them up. Or it's not keeping them up, but I hear them coughing in their room. And then I go in, they seem to be asleep, but they're coughing. And that's often misdiagnosed as a bronchitis or a pneumonia or something, but it's often actually asthma.
Oh, isn't that interesting? So how do you actually diagnose asthma?
So there's sort of shortcuts that we take. It's a lot of it is based on history because we know asthma can run in families.
Right.
We know asthma can run along with other conditions like eczema and allergies and things like that.
Are those the kids that are called atopic?
Exactly,
okay.
Yeah. So that atopic, we call it the atopic triad. So there's three things usually: eczema, allergies, and asthma.
Okay.
So there's that. So there's a little bit of family history and things like that. And then there's the history of the child himself or herself. So often I will ask kids, if the parents come in and say, I think my kid has asthma, I'll ask about the nighttime cough.
Right.
And I'll also ask them, like, when you're in phys ed, can you keep up to your classmates? Or do you have to sort of stop and breathe? Right?
Right.
Or just, stop because you're tuckered out kind of thing. So that's another one.
Okay.
And then, of course, the exam is important, right? So we can listen for wheezing and stuff like that. And then we can do, if the kids are old enough, we can actually do what's called pulmonary function tests or lung function tests to actually measure their breathing and see if that sort of fits with a diagnosis of asthma.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's lots of things you can look for. Now, what can parents do if they're watching this and they think, okay, I would like to prevent this if possible? Is there things they can do right now?
Yeah, for sure. So everybody's asthma is a little bit different.
Okay.
And you need to know your triggers or your child's triggers. So for some, it's exercise. For some, it's cigarette smoke. For some, it's allergens and stuff like that. But for almost everybody, it's cold viruses.
Okay.
So know your triggers. That's one big one. The second thing is talk to your doctor. If you've been diagnosed with asthma, you should also have an asthma action plan.
Right.
If you've never seen one of those, go on asthma.ca and download one and take it into your doctor and say, okay, here's the asthma action plan. Let's fill this out. And basically, it's a flow chart of what to do when your asthma is good, what to do when your asthma starts to flare up, and what to do if those changes when it flares up that you make aren't helping.
Okay.
Right? So that's the other thing, is have an asthma action plan. The third thing, like you said, is take your inhalers and take them properly. In the video, you actually had a little kid using it with their spacer. That's so important. Because if you imagine when you squeeze on that puffer, that stuff comes out really, really fast.
Sure.
And most of it, if you're not using a spacer, is going to hit your mouth.
Oh.
And a little bit of it will get into your lungs.
And you want all that medication to go into
If you put the spacer in there, it aerosolizes it. So you push it, it stays there, and then you take a nice slow deep breath in. You're not trying to time your breath. And a lot of kids can't time, even adults can't time our breath very well. And then the ratio is usually about 20% of the medicine gets into your lungs without a spacer.
Okay.
But 80% of the medicine gets into your lungs with a spacer.
Okay.
Rough estimate.
So use your spacer if you can and be prepared and plan ahead. Raj, thank you so much for being here. Great information, as always.